Jerry, welcome to the podcast. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, excited to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you are one of the biggest guys when it comes to wholesaling houses. When I got started 10 years ago, people were sending me your videos, and I was watching you as like a 20-year-old kid who had no idea what they were doing. And, I've followed you for a while, and, you got great stuff. YouTube channel, your education, it's awesome. You're doing a lot of deals, you're doing them all over the country. But the thing that I've really been paying attention to over the last couple of years, which is going to be the topic of this interview, is really what's going on in the wholesale industry, because boy, it has changed a lot even since I started 10 years ago.
Yeah, you're so right. You're referring to regulation and kind of some of
Yeah.
the bad publicity. Yeah, it's been really sad, Greg, because you've been in this long enough to know that with the right intention and when you really understand what it is that we do as wholesalers, we actually do a lot of good. We serve a lot of a specific type of seller, distressed seller, and we bring needed inventory to investors. We help improve neighborhoods. We fix up houses. We provide jobs. We do so much. Honestly, I believe that if you took the wholesaler out of the equation in residential real estate, the whole thing would come tumbling down because we're so valuable in that process, but we're so misunderstood by everybody outside of us, our own little
Yeah,
industry.
totally. And that's what people don't realize, especially like cranky realtors. They're like, oh, you're stealing, Sally's equity and you're flipping the contract and you're making 20 grand and you didn't do anything. But then they don't realize the guy that you sold it to put that property on the market after he put 85,000 into it and took a risk, because you and I do that all
Mhm,
the time. We still flip. And
mhm.
then now the neighbor, instead of thinking they were worth 450, now they're worth 485 because it sold for more. And you ultimately just boosted everyone up. And people don't talk about that. They just talk about, oh, you're stealing Betty's equity, which is not true most of the time.
And that's just on the fix and flip side. Then we also bring a lot of inventory to buy and hold. We bring
Oh, yeah.
affordable housing. These are dilapidated, vacant houses a lot of times. And so we bring all of that to the market. And yeah, it's just really unfortunate how misunderstood we are in this narrative that's kind of taken root that we are somehow harmful to people, that we steal equity. There's this idea around equity stripping, equity theft. And it couldn't be farther from the truth in what we do. Now, are there some bad actors? Yeah, just like there are with real estate agents. I know, in fact, I know more unethical real estate
Me
agents
too.
than I do wholesalers. So I wish that we could bring more awareness and maybe just like things like you're doing and I'm trying to do, just get loud about it and really help people understand what we do and how valuable it is.
Absolutely. So now that people are kind of shining the light on wholesalers and trying to, not end the industry, but make it extremely difficult. Because before all this, just if the listeners, if they're brand new, like back in 2015, like wholesaling, it was popular, but it wasn't like it is now. Now it's
Not
like,
like now. Yeah.
everyone knows what wholesaling is. We have sellers all the time. Are you going to wholesale the house? And we'll get into that later, because there's a way that I go about it that I've never had a seller get mad that I wholesale their house.
Mhm.
What have you seen on a state level, though? Because this is where it's really actually impacting people. Because if you don't know what's actually going on, there's some certain states that have really cracked the whip.
Yeah, and by the way, I keep a report that I update every time something new comes out, and it basically summarizes what the law is, what the new rules are, a link to reference if you want to dig a little deeper. And so I've started tracking state by state every time something comes out, and I'm tracking a bunch. Like there's 4 or 5 states right now that have bills being proposed that are regulations. Some of them really bad. The North Carolina bill that's already passed the Senate, not the House yet, I think, or vice versa, that one is probably one of the worst ones. West Virginia has a no wholesaling at all bill that they've introduced. Now, it hasn't passed, so it's not law yet. But what we're seeing here, Greg, is when regulation first came out about 5 or 6 years ago, it was Illinois was the first state to really come down and have specific law around it. Big fine, $25,000 fine if you do more than one without a license. And then it's been snowballing for the past 5 or 6 years since then. And what's unfortunate about it is when the government steps in, or when a consumer protection agency steps in, or the real estate commission steps in, what they tend to do is over-regulate, right? So they go a little too far. So like the few that maybe are doing something wrong make it, ruin it for everybody else, basically.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing now as the new states are coming out, it's just more aggressive. And some of this stuff is just ridiculous. Like sellers can cancel contracts and all this other stuff. But when you really look at what's going on, most of the laws coming out are coming from the real estate commission. And people have to understand the real estate commission is a division that regulates around licensing and the non-licensed commission. So a non-licensed or an uncommissioned or an unlicensed commission is when somebody participates in a real estate transaction, they facilitate a buy or a sell in a real estate transaction, you have to have a license to protect the consumer, right?
Mm,
If you're getting paid. So like if you
yeah.
help somebody buy or sell a house, they want you regulated. They want you to understand and follow the laws and the rules in that transaction if you don't know what you're doing, right? So that's
Yeah.
why there's licensing. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So if you receive compensation in a transaction, you should be licensed. Now, what the push is they're saying, okay, wholesalers who are actually holding an equitable interest in a contract, we want to make an argument that that is not that your equitable interest is an uncommissioned or an unlicensed commission.
Yeah.
And therefore, you need to have a license. So that's one argument. Now, a lot of the laws are around that. Like, hey, if you're going to do this, you need to have a real estate license. Or if you market your contract for sale, we want you to have a real estate license. That's
That was
what
a thing in Ohio,
they're
I
asking.
remember a couple of years ago. That was
Yeah. So
Yep.
some states, it's like, hey, we don't care that you're over there wholesaling, but if you market a contract for sale, we consider that brokering. You need to have a license to do that. Some states are saying just doing the transaction in and of itself is brokering and need a license. And now what we're starting to see, like Pennsylvania, Washington State, they're saying, no, no, no. Distressed sellers are sort of like a protected class.
Yeah,
And you're predatory. What you're doing is predatory. And it's like, what?
yeah.
They willingly, knowingly want a contract with a private seller for cash, speed and convenience. They don't want a real estate agent, and you're making them. So it's just gone too far.
Yeah, it's insane. And you mentioned the last thing. It's not even wholesaling. It's just you're an off-market private seller. Because I buy a lot of houses. You buy a lot of houses. We'll talk about the takedown method. That's buying a house. That you're taking your money, you're putting it on the line, you're taking the risk, you're getting insurance, you're getting hard money, whatever, and you're purchasing their house. You're doing what you say you're going to do. You're on the deed. In my opinion, you should be able to pay whatever price you want for that. That's you and the seller's decision. But yeah, it is interesting with some of these assignment specific laws. What is the specifics with that? Like I know the South Carolina one's already set in stone. What's going on in North Carolina? That's a popular place.
So and I actively wholesale, 6 figures a month in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
me
market.
and markets, we transact like crazy there. So it's called HB 797, North Carolina bill. And what they're doing is they're defining wholesaling as soliciting homeowners for purchase contracts and negotiating, marketing, or selling purchase contracts. Okay, so it's saying that any solicitation to contract with a seller, it doesn't matter what you intend to do with that, any basically private direct seller interaction is wholesaling. So Greg, you could buy your mom's house, and if it's not your primary residence, that's wholesaling.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like that law, oh my God, for the love of God, that better not pass the way it's written right now because it's so loosely defined wholesaling to include anything and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And then it says, now that you're soliciting homeowners, anybody soliciting homeowners, doesn't matter if it's a rental, fix and flip, wholesale, if you're soliciting homeowners, we need to protect that homeowner from you. So in order to do that, we're going to give them the right to cancel a contract, and you have to disclose to them that they have the right to cancel that contract. And so it's now just opened the door to really, now we're not just going after wholesalers, we're going after any direct to seller contact.
That's dicey.
Now, in Virginia, West Virginia, they call it the Abolishment of Wholesaling Act. Now, this is a proposed bill earlier this year, and this would formally prohibit the practice of wholesaling in the state. And it says wholesaling is when you make a profit from the transfer of equitable interest in residential real estate. And it states that wholesaling would be illegal in West Virginia. So what would happen in West Virginia? I mean, it would basically no more assignments. Maybe you can double close, but double closing, see, this is where everybody needs to understand. A lot of people say to me, double closing is the solution to everything. Well, double closing is still equitable interest.
Yep.
Your BC contract is equitable interest. You don't own the property. People somehow forget that. Like your AB contract, you got that, you and the seller. When you sign that BC contract with your buyer on a double close, you don't yet own the property and you're contracting to sell it. That's equitable interest.
Yep. And we do double closings a lot, even like, especially in New York where there's a lot of attorneys, like, we'll just, "Ah, we don't need the contract to sign. Well, don't worry about it. We'll double close and we pay a little bit extra transfer tax for like $1,000 and
Yeah,
it's all
because it's
good."
high in New York. Yep.
Mhm. Yep. But in Washington, you can't do that. California, you can't do that. I don't think Delaware you can do that either. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's
The
just you're
the Washington law, though, which actually passed, it goes into effect on January 1 of 2026 coming up. And you actively wholesale there, so it's gonna be interesting how everybody adjusts to this, but here's what Washington says. It says if it's an unlisted property, now it's really weird how they go about how they wrote the law, but basically if it's an unlisted property, so private seller, that seller has 3 days to order an appraisal at the buyer's expense. So you, the wholesaler, have to pay for the $500 appraisal. After the seller gets the appraisal, they have 4 days to cancel the contract without penalty. If they decide not to get an appraisal, they have 10 days after signing the contract to cancel without penalty. And it says that either the buyer or the seller has to have, this is the exception. There's the exception to this is it doesn't count for publicly listed properties. So basically, if we were to really look at what happened in Washington, this is a total money grab from NAR and real estate agents. They're forcing private sellers to have a real estate agent in the transaction. No more private transactions in Washington. A real estate agent has to be in the transaction.
It's crazy. It's almost like a short sale where you have to list it for a second. And I've seen so many realtors on listed properties do their sellers a disservice, and no one says anything about that. Like they'll just give them
How is that not the biggest fraudulent law? Because now what's going to happen? An agent has to get paid in a transaction now. And that fee, that commission to an agent is coming from somewhere. And guess where it's coming from? The seller is going to pay less to cover the commissions.
Yep.
Not because the seller wants a real estate agent, because the law dictates a real estate agent has to be in the transaction, or buyers have to pay for appraisals. Well, what buyer in their right mind is going to be paying $500 appraisals for their sellers just so the seller can shop you to somebody else?
Exactly.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pay for that.
No, it's insane. And that's the thing I've noticed here, especially in the Seattle market where it's really expensive and competitive, is like it's really tough to get deals. So like now it's like it costs me $8,000 in direct marketing, Google Mail, the whole thing to acquire
a contract.
Yeah. If that seller can cancel that contract with no penalty to me, and let's say my fallout rate is 50%, now I'm going from 8 to 16. And now if I'm at 16, if I wholesale that for 30, my margins are going to get screwed up because now I'm like, I got to factor in 50%. It's tough. It's especially.
And think about this. Greg, like, let's say that you did that. Let's say that you ordered the appraisal and your buyers now know the law. Your buyer, you've just made it so easy to get backdoored.
Oh,
Because now all your buyer has to do is say, hey, seller, you're in that window of time right now. I just contracted with Greg for $350. I know he's got the contract with you for $325. I'll tell you what, let's make it $330 or, $320. You know what I mean? Like they're going to renegotiate.
yeah, it's terrible. And then there's nothing you can do about it.
And you can't do anything about it. It's law that they
Yeah,
can do that.
it's crazy. So in terms of, the Washington stuff and the North Carolina, that's like no matter what you're doing, you're going to deal with that. But now back to the wholesaling side in the states where it's more wholesaling specific regulation. What have you been teaching your students? What have you been doing? Because you're doing a lot of deals all over the country. How are you exiting from these transactions profitably? Because the truth is, and I don't operate in North Carolina or South Carolina in that case, if I were to, which I won't right now because we're busy, I would go wild down in South Carolina. I would be buying everything under the sun and just wholetailing and doing whatever.
In fact, if you know anybody, I know some guys in South Carolina, and here's the thing. Anywhere these regulations are passing, if you can get, I call it capitalized. If you're well capitalized, you are going to annihilate it in those states. Because here's why. When the regulation comes, the virtual wholesalers all go somewhere else. You just eliminate competition. And all that's left in that state is going to be active, probably local, and capitalized. And all those wholesalers are going to do is they're just going to buy the dang thing. They got capital. They're going to buy it, fund it, and resell it. And they're going to make 2 to 4 times more than they were before. They're going to have way less competition. Right now, wholesaling's so big, you deal with this. I'll talk to a seller and he's got 5 contracts on the table. And he's like, okay, let me put number 6 on the table and we'll look at them all.
Yeah.
Right?
It's wild.
That's going to happen in Pennsylvania. That's happening right now in South Carolina. I got some friends and they're like, Jerry, when that South Carolina bill or law came into effect, I'm killing it. Like
Oh,
I need my price. You know what I mean? And who did we ultimately hurt? We hurt sellers because now the buyers have to they have to factor in capital, which means they have to buy deeper.
yep. And the sellers get less money, they get less offers.
That's right.
And if they're taking that risk, you have leverage as a buyer in that case because the
If
seller
you
doesn't have any
if
options.
you if somebody really does care about the seller, you want wholesaling because that's going to create competition and it's going to keep the prices up.
Exactly.
It works in every single industry. The more competition, the better the prices.
I literally remember when I first moved out here, I live in West Seattle, so it's like the suburbs of the city. The first ever deal we did, it was down the street from my house, and it was rare because around here it's like very hard to get a wholesale deal. It's expensive.
Yeah.
The seller was about to sign with us, and someone else came in the mix, and we both bid ourselves up 70 grand more than he was going to sign for, and we still made the deal happen in wholesale. It made a couple bucks, but the more buyers, the more higher the
The
price.
more
Still
buyers,
made
the higher the
70
price the
grand more.
seller gets. Yep.
So, Jerry, what about this is where my head's going on this because another strategy that people just salivate over now is novations,
Mhm.
right? Which, I see you're smiling there. Right?
The thing about a novation is it's one specific strategy for a very specific seller and situation.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace wholesaling ever because what a novation doesn't solve is the speed and convenience factor that a seller has where they need the cash fast. So a novation fits a very narrow bucket of a very specific type of seller. It's just one way. So like we do novations, but only when it applies and it's a
Yeah.
good solution in a very specific situation. So to think that a novation could replace wholesaling, no, it's
Yeah.
never replaced
No.
wholesaling. Wholesaling in the big picture is someone that's got high equity. They need that speed and convenience and they need that cash.
Yeah.
They don't have time to go on the market and deal with all.
Do you see regulations coming with novations?
Yes, in fact, a novation is also equitable interest. When you novate a contract, that's equitable interest. You don't own that thing you're selling. Here's what everyone has to understand. It's really simple. If you don't own the dang thing and you're getting paid, that's equitable interest.
Yep.
That's a novation, that's an assignment, and that's a double close. The only thing that we could call wholesaling, in my opinion, this is going to be the new definition of wholesaling in the next 5 years. It's going to be like CarMax. When you go to CarMax and you say, hey, I want to sell my used car and I'm happy to sell it at a discount for speed and convenience and walk out of here with a check, CarMax doesn't assign your contract. They buy it
Yep.
at 80% and sell it at 100%.
Yep.
That's going to be wholesaling. Wholesaling is going to be, I don't fix it up. I buy it for a deal and I turn around and resell it. My kids, they sell iPhones, like they buy them used and resell them. They don't assign the iPhone contract. They buy the iPhone at a discount and resell it. That's what wholesaling is going to become. It's going to be buy the dang thing, don't rehab it because that's called fix and flip.
Yep.
Buy it, resell it. Buy it, resell it. That's we call that wholesaling. I call it a takedown.
Yeah, I call that wholesaling. Yeah.
It's been a strategy forever. It's just, why would I buy it, own it, take the risk, take title, insurance, and resell it, longer cycle if I can do an assignment? I'll always do an assignment over a wholesale. Not always, but in most cases because it's easier, less risk, it's faster, I get paid sooner.
Yep.
But when that goes away, we're just going to do like every other industry that does wholesaling and we're going to buy it and resell it.
Yep. Exactly. And it'll ultimately make the industry a little bit easier to get deals, in my opinion, because when you have no more assignment contracts, you have to have the money to buy it. And the thing with new investors, and this is where they get tripped up, is they're like, I don't have any money. I'm like, well, if you can align with a coach or someone in your market who knows what they're doing, and you can bring value, i.e. leads, you're not going to have an issue getting the money because you can JV with them and capital will never be an issue.
You know what? To me, there's 2 rules to real estate. Get a good deal. Everything else is easy.
I'm in full agreement with that. That's the truth.
There's a buyer, there's capital, there's everything is easy. Get a good deal. Like stop worrying about, can I get the money? Can I find a buyer? Like new wholesalers, they always worry about step 10 before step 1.
Yep.
Step 1, guys, go get a really good deal. Everything else is easy.
Exactly.
Now, if you get a marginal deal, a skinny deal, everything's hard. You got to work your butt off.
Yep.
Because no one wants to fund it. No one wants to buy it. You work
Yep.
really, really hard to try to make $5,000. Get it a smoking hot deal and you got 20 people fighting over it and you make 20, 30 grand.
Exactly. And I'm sure you get the same thing. I'm on all the public records because we close on a lot of stuff, and I get wholesalers every day. Hey, what's your buy box? And I'm usually really nice with them. I say, here, let me tell you some good advice. You're doing the wrong thing right now. I understand your heart's in the right place.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Keep going. I want to hear this.
I said, your heart's in the right place. I was in your shoes 10 years ago. Here's the truth, Mr. Wholesaler, Mrs. Wholesaler. You need to find sellers who want to sell at a discount, and I can promise you that when you do that and you have a good deal and you call me or anyone else, your deal will be sold if the numbers make sense. And spend your time with sellers. And I know you have something called PropWire that they can pull that data for free on.
Yeah,
Look at that.
there's no excuse. I agree. When someone comes to me and they say, "Hey, Jerry, if I find a good deal, will you buy it?" I roll my eyes and I'm like, "Yes." Now go find a freaking good deal. Stop wasting.
Exactly.
Well, who cares? Go get a good deal.
Go get a good deal.
What do you
And
mean? What's my buy box? I don't buy pre-1960. I don't want anything under thousands. Like, just go get a good deal.
I chuckle when I see that. I'm like, if you
Just
give me an infill lot and it's a good deal, I'll buy it. I don't care.
I'll buy anything if it's a good deal because I'll resell
Exactly.
it for more. You know what I mean? Like, and what's your buy box? Who cares? There's a buy box for everything. Get a good deal, and someone will want it.
100%. And I've thought about the psychology behind that. And I think the reality is with new people is it's not like that easy to get. Like it requires work, effort, persistence, follow up. You're going to get rejected a lot if you're going to make low offers to get a good deal. So the path of least resistance is finding you and me because our phone numbers are everywhere and calling us and thinking you're making progress. But the truth is, when you have to make 20 offers and get 19 no's, people don't want to do that. Human nature doesn't like, you don't want to get rejected. So that's why I see a lot of people gravitate to these buyers when ultimately you got to go after the sellers because then you can control your income to a certain extent. When you can have
And think about it. Here's the thing you got to think about. Pre-selling a deal to a buyer, could that work? Yes. Is there something there? Sure. But what you're doing by focusing on buyers not finding deals is you're just prolonging the inevitable because there's no way around it. If you want to be good at this, at some point in time, you're going to have to talk to sellers and make low offers and contract deals and spend money on marketing. Why are you delaying the inevitable? You have to learn how to do that. Hey, maybe your first deal, hey, I want to find a buyer. I'm going to bring the deal to the buyer. I'm going to have them walk the property. Hopefully they don't backdoor me. Okay, I kind of see the logic around that, but it's still to me, like you just said, I think that's bad advice. Go learn how to transact good deals with sellers and then the world's yours, dude. Like you will never go hungry. You will always make money if you can figure out how to find good deals.
100%. 100%. I got a funny, this is not a funny, I got a good case study for you because your training was involved in this. So, good friend of mine who lives in New York, his name's Taylor Berg. I'll give him a shout out because he's a hustler. He was brand new, maybe 5, 6 years ago, and he found me in my local market and he saw my website and he calls me out of the blue. He's like, hey, I want to learn from you. So I'm like, yeah, man, listen, if you can go out and you can find a deal, we can partner, whatever, just bring it to me and we'll rock and roll. So he brought me maybe his first 3 or 4 deals. And I remember after he did that, I was like, listen, now we're at the phase where we got to max these things out. This is back when the interest rates were like 2, 3%. He brings me this, like the 5th deal. I said, Taylor, you're going to make more splitting this with me 50-50 than you would on your own. Watch this. And we get this, he gets this smoking deal under contract in Poughkeepsie. We put it out for like a $30,000 assignment. And I was super clear with the buyers. I said, listen, this is going to be high demand. This is our starting price. It's going to be an auction. It's going to be highest and best. We end up maxing that thing out at $70,000. So we go 40 over. He gets his check for 35. And now this guy's on his own. He's an absolute mule. He's doing deals left and right. And he got good at finding these deals. And now he's in control of his income and he's extremely successful. So thank you for your training because you've helped him a ton.
That's awesome. And you know what? Shout out to him for progressing, right? Like,
Yeah.
he JV'd with you.
Yep.
And then, everything's developmental in this business. Like, I totally get it. I have students where they're like, hey, Jerry, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to go focus on deals. And then I'll turn my deals over to your team since you guys have a really good dispo process. And I say to them, we're happy to dispo your deals. In fact, we just dispoed one. It was a $28,000 deal. We split it with the student. But I say to him, listen, this isn't a forever thing, I hope, right? I mean, you need to get to a point. Now, maybe that's your 5th deal in. Maybe it's your 10th deal in. I don't know. But you better start learning dispo at some point because you're giving up half the profit just because you don't know that other side yet. And you're not ready to dedicate time, energy, and effort to it. But that's developmental. It's okay just when you get there, like keep progressing. Then at some point, it's like, okay, now what do I need to learn? Maybe now learn creative finance. Maybe now learn a Novation. Maybe now learn how to get capital and buy the thing. Like everybody's got to just start where they're at. But the end game is to keep learning and developing and becoming a more well-rounded investor. Like I love that you also flip because what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I'm going to be really good at acquisitions. I'm going to spend $8,000 per contract. I'm going to be totally in control of my deal flow. I'm not waiting for an agent. I'm not waiting for another wholesaler to bring me inventory. I find my own deals And now because I have multiple exit strategies, I'm going to contract that good deal. I'm going to keep the home runs. I'm going to wholesale everything else. I mean, that's my business model. Keep the home runs, wholesale everything else.
Me too. It's the best because when you keep the home runs, you're guaranteeing you're going to max those deals out. And then you make your base hit assignments that pay the overhead, put some net in your pocket, and you rinse and repeat. And then the really, really, really good ones, we'll pick them off as rentals, but those are.
There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
think how genius that model is, because
Yeah.
here's the thing. If you take the baseball analogy, if you take triples, doubles, and singles, those are somebody else's home run deal because they're okay to take skinny margins. I'm not. You're not. You know
No.
too much. You're too good at acquisition
Yeah.
to take on a skinny deal. So what do? You hold out for the home runs. To me, it's 6 figures plus.
Yep.
I'm like, why would I sign this thing for 20 or 30 if I can make 150? I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to take it down. I'm going to resell it, or I'm going to do a rehab or whatever. And so then I'm going to be very picky. I'm going to be very selective because I know I'm taking on capital. I'm taking on risk. I'm taking on time. I got to manage a rehab or whatever. But all the other smaller deals, I'm going to take the 15. I'm going to take the 20. I'm going to take the 10. I'm going to move those to someone else. And I'm going to keep that cash coming in. I'm going to keep that golden goose laying the eggs.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'm funding my operation. I'm padding my bank account. I'm paying for my marketing. I'm paying my commissions to my team, and I'm making money there, and I'm making the big wins here. Like that's how you want to develop into.
That's the ultimate model. And I remember when I did my first wholesale on my own back in, 2019, I had a goal. My goal was I want to make 6 figures on one deal. And, the area I'm from, you could do it. It's not like I'm in some area where it's super cheap. And I had this home run lead. It was a vacant house. The guy inherited the property. It was a cold text or whatever. And I remember he said the price. I almost fell over in his lap.
Is that the best you can do?
Yeah, I was like, let me talk to my partner about that.
Yeah.
I ended up, wholetailing it. And I was scared. I never borrowed hard money. I was still super young.
Yeah.
Like 101 grand net profit. And I was like, this is nuts. And then ever since then, I got hooked on like wholetailing, flipping, when it makes sense. So,
Yeah.
Gary, as we start to wrap the show up, a couple more minutes, then we'll get you out of here. One state I have a question about because I used to live there. It's a beautiful state, but unfortunately, it's getting ruined. But there's a lot of people living there. I'm sure you're guessing the great state of California. Do you see any regulations in California? Because I haven't seen anything, and I know there's a lot of wholesalers in Northern and Southern California.
No, there was a regulation they tried to pass here a few years ago, which was a flipper tax. And it didn't pass, which is fantastic because that would have been horrible. But basically, they introduced a bill. It was intended for flippers, but the way they wrote the bill was it was anybody. So if you bought a house and you sold it in a 2-year window, there was a flat 25% tax on your gain. So this would be a homeowner. I bought the house. I get transferred for work. I sell it within a 2-year window. I pay a 25% tax to California. So that wasn't a wholesale thing. That was a flipping thing, and it didn't pass. But no, I'm actually stunned that California doesn't have crazy, stupid regulation around wholesaling. I think it's coming, but I think it's coming everywhere. Like if you're in a state right now, here's what I tell everybody. And this is interesting that what I'm about to say, Greg, because I know the guy that was a big part of the South Carolina bill, because he's on the real estate commission. And he's one of the few attorneys. There's an attorney.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, he said, this was fascinating. You know how wholesalers, we go to conferences and we network and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, the real estate commissions in all the states, they also go to conventions and they talk about what's hot right now. And he said, at these real estate commission conventions, the number one topic is wholesaling. And everybody, all the commissions are talking about it. What are you doing? What should we do? How do we stop this? Wow. They all hate it. They all are trying to stop it. They're all talking about it. They're all looking at what the other states are doing. They're all learning from each other. It's when you look at the new laws coming out, you see language from you see them picking pieces from other states, and they're trying to find a way to, South Carolina, what they did was absolutely brilliant from the point of regulation. They said, if you're wholesaling, you fall under the real estate commission. Now we have jurisdiction over you. Part 2 is we don't want you doing it at all.
Yeah, that was smart. Yeah.
Absolutely genius. We're in charge of you wholesalers. We're going to bring you under our umbrella. We now have jurisdiction over what you do, and we don't want you doing it at all.
Case closed. Yeah.
That's how they banned it now.
Wow.
But so my point with that is just, if you think that your state that right now maybe doesn't have regulation isn't working on a bill you're nuts because they all are. You don't know how aggressive they'll be. That's true. Maybe they'll be like some of the states where it's like, hey, if you market contracts, you have to have a license. Okay, go get your freaking license.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or maybe you can double close there or whatever. But like just plan on it. I tell everybody there's two things you probably need to be thinking about. Get a real estate license, and you better get capitalized and have the ability to fund deals. If you're doing those two things, you're preparing for regulation.
100%. Just because wholesaling might get harder or illegal somewhere doesn't mean the business of getting discounted real estate's going away, because that'll never go away, because there's always gonna be houses
How
cheap.
could it go away? There will always be a distressed seller and there will always be a discounted real estate deal to happen.
Every market, every day, no matter what the economy. I honestly, now I was talking to my team yesterday. I said, guys, here's the truth. Getting easier to buy deals, which was not the case for a long time. I said, let's just hope it's not going to be hard to sell deals, because that's usually how the seesaw works. But, you just got to focus on what you have control over. And if you can always get good deals at a discount, no matter what the economy is, you will get your property sold and you will be successful. And, Jerry, you're the man. I'm so happy we did this. I don't know you very well,
Yeah.
but we just connected today, and I've been watching your videos for 10 years. So if people want to follow you and check you out, what is you have a finders club as well, which is really interesting for new people. How do people check that out?
Yeah, well, this goes back to that, like, find a buyer first or find a deal first. Well, one thing that we have is we have a finder program. I like to flip. I've got really good systems. I've got capital. I have an investor that funds my flips, and he's like, Jerry, I got $50 million sitting on the sidelines. I got to get my money out there, like bring me more deals. So we're aggressively buying nationwide to flip. And I love working with wholesalers. So we have a finder program where if you find a deal meets my criteria, I'll pay you 10 grand for that deal. We call it 10K club. It's great because new people can like just hyper focus on finding the deal, and they know that there's a buyer there. We provide proof of funds, we provide contract, we provide software tools, resources to help people. I have this training where you can learn how to be a finder for me. If you go to my10kcheck.com, what you have to do is you have to go there. You can register for that training, get on there and learn all the details and see if it's something you want to do. And for people that are interested in this topic, I do that free report. If you want, I can give you it's just called wholesaleregulation.com. And you can download that report. I keep updated all the time on all the different states.
That's awesome. I'm going to download that after this.
Yeah.
On one of my tabs. So we'll put all that in the show notes. YouTube channel, I believe, is Flipping Mastery, right?
Flipping Mastery. I try to put out, 3-4 videos a week, all around wholesaling, flipping, some other real estate stuff. But yeah, appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. Jerry, you're the man. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure talking with you about it, because I watch all your regulation videos. So when we got to do, I'm like, oh, I already know what's going on here. So let's this will be a good one. So thank you.
Well,
so
thank
much,
you, Greg,
Jerry.
for bringing light to this. A lot of people want to brush this under the rug, pretend like it's not happening. So I love that you're willing to talk about this.
Oh yeah.
It's not a fun topic, like I wish we could just talk about making money. But guys, if we don't talk about this and we don't bring awareness to this, I mean, one thing too that we didn't really talk about is like everybody needs to raise the bar. If there's a gray area in the way you're transacting, clean that up, man, because they're coming for us. So don't give them any reason to come for us.
That's why I love what you're putting out and all your content, and the fact that you're shedding light on these regulations so people can actually pay attention and operate their business with the right strategy. So, Jerry, man, I appreciate your time. We'll have all those links in the show notes.
Thanks, Greg. I really love doing this with you. So let's do more. I'd love to do more with you.
Absolutely, buddy. I'd love to.